Hey everyone, Mike here from Analog Attack, back again. Good to see you. I know I said that the volume 3 or episode 3 or part 3 of the Japanese punk videos will be the last one, but a couple of things. There's some business to take care of about the channel, and also I realized there's still like so many great Japanese punk and hardcore records that I haven't talked about yet, so it seems like foolish not to do them, not to get to them. And it's always fun. It's been a lot of fun talking about these Japanese punk records. So I've got about 15 more that we'll have a good time talking about today. But before we get to that, got to do kind of a YouTube thing. We reached 3,000 subscribers the other week, which, you know, in YouTube terms is kind of small numbers, but for a small channel like this that talks about very niche things like, you know, Japanese hardcore and, you know, this, that, and the other, it's pretty nice. And we were like dormant for a long time. I didn't do anything for ages, and also I've been focusing for the last 3 years on the weekly podcast, What You're Listening To. So if you haven't checked out What You're Listening To yet, go and check them out. There's like 146 episodes and counting. You'll find them under podcasts and live. So thanks everyone for liking, watching, subscribing, commenting. You know, I'm not a YouTuber. I'm just a bloke that makes videos and puts them on YouTube. But you know, you have to acknowledge you know, your subscribers and people that support you. So I'm really grateful to everyone that's been watching and subscribing. So thanks a lot. Hopefully there'll be more good stuff coming up around the corner, and maybe I'll announce that at the end of the video. But enough of that flim flam. Let's get to the meat of today's video, which is more Japanese punk and hardcore. I'm going to start today. I'm going to go right back to like first wave Japanese punk. Now, honestly, this is not my area of expertise. It's kind of weird. I got into like the first wave of Japanese hardcore and then really didn't kind of go back to the first wave of punk like too much. But this year and like last year, I've sort of been exploring more and getting into, there's a few bands that I've been familiar with, but I've been listening to a lot more first wave Japanese punk. So I'm going to get to a little bit of it today. Maybe I'll do a better sort of longer episode on this down the road. So, I mean, first wave Japanese punk, really, you're kind of going to get one or two or three of three things. It doesn't happen you'll get three of them, but there's like three kind of things you're going to get from first wave Japanese punk. So they're going to be either really like rock and rollsy and kind of garagey, like rock and rolly garagey punk, or it's going to be kind of an aggressive take on new wave. Yeah, because, you know, Japan was a little bit behind, you know, the UK and the US with getting in, you know, with the punk scene, but not too far behind. But there's a sort of aggressive new wave slant or all this stuff, or you get some real like artiness and kind of jaggedness and off-kilterness as well. But you're going to get at least one of those three. So let's go back to 1980. This band was around from around like 1978. They took the best punk name of all of the punk names. I'm talking about Anarchy. Of course, there we go. This is their self-titled LP from 1980. They put out 2 records in 1980. I decided to show this one. This is kind of supposed to, this is one of their sort of legendary records, even though it's got like 6 covers on here. Some of the covers you can't tell at first, like they're covers, but it's got, you know, it's got London's Burning, but they call it Tokyo's Burning, Suspect Device, Lock It Up by Eater, White Riot, so Save European Home. Obviously very influenced by the Clash, but it's like super rock and rolly. And this was a real like blue collar kind of working class band. There's no artiness here. It's a real like people's band. You know, but they're on a major label like right off the bat. They put a ton of records out. I like them all. They kind of get more like rock and a little bit more commercial as you kind of go through the catalog. But man, if you're in Japan, you can pick up all these records like super cheap. So yeah, check out Anarchy. I love them, man. I remember like, you know, driving around in like my Japanese punk, you know, friends' cars and stuff years ago. And they were talking like hardcore punks here, and they were sort of playing this kind of music, and I didn't get it at all. I was like, why are these guys listening to this sort of like rock and roll? Obviously, everybody loves Anarchy and a lot of these first wave Japanese punk bands. So there you go. Anarchy is my first pick. This next band was around from like 1976. They actually had a slight name change even before that, but they didn't put out their first LP until 1981. And again, straight to a major label. This band is from Hakata, like down south. I love this record. Someone actually said to me, it was Rich from England, said, like, don't show this record because it's not that I'm good, not that I'm like a tastemaker or anything, but like it's like, we don't want the prices or anything to go. That's not gonna happen. I'm talking about the mods, Fight or Flight. Look at these guys. This is like, again, kind of rock and roll. It doesn't sound anything like Anarchy. It's a bit more aggressive. It's got a bit more bite. No cover versions. The first song is called Song for John, Simon, Richie, and Us, which is obviously John Lydon, Sid Vicious, and Us. It's real like driving, like punk rock with a rock and roll edge. I think it's a classic. They have a lot of records out. They a bit like Anarchy. They get like more commercial, as you go through the catalog. I think you can't really go wrong with the first like 3 or 4 mods records, but this, without a doubt, is the best one. The mods, Fight or Flight. Epic Records, 1981. Now, I got a couple of real classic first wave Japanese punk compilation LPs. Now there's a label called Godzilla Records who put out a lot of really important 7-inches that cost like an arm and a leg now, especially like bands like The Mirrors. But there's like a compilation album which came out in 83 with a lot of material that was recorded in 78 and 79. It's called the Godzilla Special or Godzilla Dinner Special. And it's got a studio side and a live side. It's got Mirrors, Tsunematsu Masatoshi from Friction, Flesh, Mr. Kite, Pain, and Maria 023. The studio side of this is some of the best like Japanese punk period of all time. It's incredible. This has been reissued like recently. This is an absolute must for anyone who's interested in Japanese punk. It's a classic. I mean, the live side is good too, but just this studio side is absolutely incredible. First wave Japanese punk, top-notch recommendation. And there's kind of a companion to this one, I suppose you could say, called Tokyo Rockers. Also, it's on a major label, CBS, 1979. This is a classic as well. This is recorded live, though. Actually on my birthday, March 11th, Shinjuku Loft in Tokyo. The old Shinjuku Loft, 1979. The old Shinjuku Loft. If you've been to Shinjuku Loft since like the late 90s, you might be thinking you went to the Shinjuku Loft that people talk about when they're talking about like first wave Japanese hardcore, but it was in another location in Shinjuku. I was lucky enough to go there like twice in the early 90s, but that location has gone. Anyway, this was recorded there at the very small Shinjuku Loft. March 11th, 1979. Friction, who are kind of hands down my favorite band of this era, honestly. I've talked about them in a previous episode. Mr. Kite, Lizard, The Mirrors again, and S-Ken again. Don't be put off that this is live. It's just amazing first wave Japanese punk. And actually on this one, you get all three of the 3 things that I was talking about at the beginning. You get the garagey stuff, you get the rock and rollsiness, you get like an aggressive take on new wave, and you kind of also get some artiness and kind of no wavishness, especially with Friction. Classic compilation. I want to do another couple of compilations. I know I did do a standalone episode on compilations, but most of those were kind of focusing on like old, like first and second wave Japanese hardcore. These lean into the more punk side of things. This is an absolute classic from 1996. It seems newer to me. I can't believe this is from 1996, but Chloroform. This came out on the amazing Mangrove label, and it's really a snapshot of the kind of garage punk and 77 style punk of the mid-90s. It's got the Registrators are on here, who I talked about in the last episode. Tonight, the Young Ones, Engine Boo. Like every band is just top-notch garage punk, 77 style punk. Great comp. And another one that's a little bit later. It came out on Jerk Off Records, which was the Futures label, Futures Osaka band. Cheers, everyone. This is called Sabotage 2001. It came out in 2001. Obviously, here we go. Here it is. And this is really, it's a snapshot of the sort of UK 82 scene in Japan at this time. So it's got the cream of the crop of the Japanese bands doing a sort of UK 82 style punk. Tracer 43, Rebel Youth, The Resisted, The Last Survivors, who their stuff's been getting reissued lately, right? And people have been sort of outside of Japan have been catching up to how great The Last Survivors were. Amazing, powerful UK 82 kind of style band. Persevere, Order. Oh, I went to see Order on Sunday, actually, in the park up here in Osaka with Warhead. Fun show out in the park in the afternoon. Second Degree, Melodies, The Addiction, great local band, and the Hat Tricker. The Hat Trickers are still going, right? Didn't they just go to the States recently with their sort of like Clockwork Orange punk? But this is a great comp if you're interested in sort of UK 82 style punk from Japan. It's a bit more, I don't want to use the word sophisticated, but it's a bit more sophisticated than sort of like the Dick Spikey and the Tom and the Boot Boys, all that kind of stuff. Bit more classy, let's put it that way. All right, this is our ADK record of today. This is actually one that was discussed in the comments. Somebody mentioned Aburadako, and then we're talking about this one, and they were saying, "Oh, well, it was like a CD only, like compilation thing." It has been issued, put out on vinyl. I have got it. This is the band I used to say that kind of like not ruined, but they were like my least favorite band on Great Punk Hits. I'm talking about Aburadako or Oily Octopus. So this is a collection of all their early stuff on ADK Records. You've got the 7-inch flexi, the Great Punk Hit songs, and the mini, the 12-inch mini album. This is like, the much more hardcore punk era of Aburadako. They went very experimental, and more so as you go through the catalog, almost kind of progressive rock at times. But man, the early stuff is really kind of twisted, demented, hardcore, like typical ADK record stuff. But yeah, this is nice. There is a non-picture disc version as well of this collection. I think it's fair to include this, and the CD does have more tracks on it, but it's just live stuff. So honestly, I think this is the way to go. The vinyl version. Now let's talk about a band that I think was kind of important in getting people interested in Japanese hardcore in the US. I can't remember when they went to the US. It's a couple of times. It would have been like the mid-90s, I want to say. And they were a young, hungry band. I think people really liked them. I'm talking about Assfort. And I'm also talking about an Assfort record that like it isn't easy to get like outside of Japan. And they'd kind of shifted at this point. They were more of a kind of like slightly disorder influenced, wearing kind of rags, kind of not crusty band, but kind of noisy. And then they kind of shifted slightly and started wearing, a lot of leather and leopard print, kind of not, more like rock and roll approach. But man, this album is incredibly zesty and peppy, like high energy. Like the musicianship is insane. It's like Stop on a Dime, hardcore. I love this record. It came out on a little bit of a bigger label called Flying High in 2001. They have another record after this, which is even kind of further away from their original sort of hardcore punk roots. But man, I love this era of Assfort. Look at that artwork. It's done by the guy, I should have written his name then. It's done by the guy that did like some Stalin artwork back in the day. He did the mushy, what's his name? That guy, So yeah, they kind of were spending some money here, getting like a famous artist and stuff to do the front cover of their record. But yeah, great stuff. Assfort, Free Punk, customized kit, 2001. All right, I'm wearing the t-shirt. I've mentioned this label already a few times because it's such an important label for Japanese punk in the 90s and the 2000s. So I want to show three maybe slightly lesser known HG Fact records. Let's see. So this one maybe definitely is, and you can still find this one for cheap. They are from Sapporo. Really interesting band. Barricade is the name of the band. And Where Is the Truth? This is an interesting record. It's really like almost like the political crust of the 90s that you would get in the States. I mean, it does sound a little bit Japanese, but yeah, interesting record. It's kind of noisy, a little bit blown out, but it's definitely like not traditional Japanese hardcore by any means. And it's super long song titles like Struggle Against Your Life, Until Be Cremated, Media, Reality, Truth, Murder Conference, Peace in the Dark, The Future in the Dark. Kind of long, kind of Aus Rottenish kind of like song titles. I don't know. It just feels like they were listening to a lot of like mid-90s American crust, which and it's kind of unusual to find a record like this in Japan. And you can still pick it up for cheap in the used bins, but great record. Barricade, Where Is the Truth? HG Fact, 1997. This one might be a bit well known in the States because Ken from Prank Records put it out on vinyl after it was put out by HG Fact on CD. I did talk about this a little bit last week. I mentioned it because I did the split LP, but now I'm showing this 12-inch EP. Jabara, Why We Wish. Man, remember Ken also sent this record sounds so massive. I don't know how they fit so much like massive sound on one 12-inch. Production is massive. It's super thick, like burly, punishing hardcore, just steamrolling. Just oh man. And I remember I used to go and see this band quite a lot. I think I mentioned it last time, but very impressive, like front man. And like I said last time, I think they kind of changed styles quite a bit later on. Man, this early stuff, is untouchable. And again, you've got like the Tom artwork is the cherry, the icing on the cake. Jabara, Why We Wish, fucking great hardcore punk record. Another one, just talking about Jabara, they were called something else, and then they changed their name to Jabara. But before they were Jabara, they had another band, which is basically the same lineup, called Messed Up. This is not as burly as Jabara. It's more kind of not ramshackle, more raw, kind of traditional Japanese hardcore, maybe with some US hardcore influences. It's like Total Control, mini LP, HG Fact, 1996. This is one that you kind of always still see in the bins. They weren't around too long. Changed the name to Jabra, but man, this is kind of a hidden gem. I'm going to say from the mid 90s, 1996. All right, if this one had have come out on Crust War, maybe people would be sort of talking about it in the same way they talk about Gloom and other bands on Crust War. It didn't. It came out on Discipline, which is the sort of hardcore division of Vinyl Japan. And I've talked about this before in another show that, they had an office in London and the records were pressed in France and they were easy to get and cheap. That it wasn't sort of, as exotic as buying a record on Selfish Records or MCR. You could get them super easy. But man, if you like the noisier stuff, check out Unwise, Worth of Existence. Super like blown out, noisy hardcore that like could have been on Crust War. The 7-inches aren't as good. This is the one to get, the 12-inch. Worth of Existence, Unwise, Discipline Records, 1993. This is one that came up in the chat, and someone was saying, that it's one of their favorite Japanese hardcore records of all time, which I thought was a really interesting thing to say. Because it's a band that wasn't really around very long. They put out a self-titled CD, and then Burai put it out on vinyl in the States. Some like important members in this band. I'm talking about this record, Super Frisky, for Buddy, Burai Records 2012. So who's in this band? Well, drummer is from Tetsuari. Guitar player is from the sort of later era of Tetsuari. The singer was in this band called Akutare, who are a really good, like, kind of rock and rolly hardcore band. And then the bassist is Sakura from Judgment. The interesting thing about this record, or this band, really, and I'm pretty sure this is correct, is that Chelsea, from Paintbox, Poison, Deathside, was in the band at the beginning, and he wrote a lot of the songs. I'm pretty sure this is true. There's no evidence of this on the internet or anything, but I'm pretty certain this is true. And so you can kind of tell, actually, it's a little bit, Burning Spirit style, like hardcore, a female vocalist. But I was really chuffed that someone sort of said that this was their favorite Japanese hardcore record, because it's a bit of a wild card pick. But I think it's a great record. So you can probably get it super cheap in the States, because it was released on vinyl in the States by Burai Core. So check out Discogs or your local distro, maybe, or your local used record emporium. Remember, I was telling you that I wasn't like super keen on Gauze or Gauze, and I kind of softened my stance on them in recent years. There was another band from Yokohama that kind of played a similar style of music, similar kind of real thrashy hardcore, and I was never too into them either. I like their blue 7-inch that was a gig only freebie, and the comp tracks are pretty good. I'm talking about Systematic Death from Yokohama. I know that people love them in the States and Europe. People always say, like, wow, they were amazing live. I get it. Koba, he's an amazing drummer. We've talked about him before. He was a drummer in Bastard, and now rocking the Sweden. This is Systematic Death 6. So this is, a contemporary record, but it's from 2009. And my friend Cece was sort of saying, hey, have you heard like the Systematic Death album from like 2000? I was like, no. Why would I have heard that, as not being a huge Systematic Death fan? He's like, man, you got to check it out. And he sent me a copy, and I got to say, he was absolutely correct. This is, it's the best Systematic Death that I've heard. The best Systematic Death album that I've heard. It's way better than like the album from 1987 on Selfish Records. Just ripping, energetic, super fast, high energy Japanese hardcore thrash, which really took me by surprise how great it was. Check it out. Came out on Feral Ward. So again, it's probably still easy to find used in the bins in the States. All right, we're gonna finish at the end of the alphabet. It seems fitting. Not too many records in the Z section of the any section, actually, but Japanese hardcore has a few. It could show the Zone LP, but I don't think the Zone LP is anywhere near as good as their 7-inches. I've got the Zoro kind of collection, Zad Keel, which is kind of Motorhead influenced, kind of hardcore motor punk. But today I'm going to show this one. The Zolg, Crisis My Guest, Dogma Records, 1984. This is an interesting band, kind of basically more of a kind of dark gothic band, but on this record and the first like flexi, it's infused with the sort of metallic dark Japanese hardcore of the day. So you'll hear like the Execute in here and a little bit of Gizm in here. Very, very interesting album. Like kind of gothic mixed with like, that 80s era of metallic Japanese hardcore. They changed styles after this. They went more sort of Hanoi Rocks, Lord of the New Church style rock and roll. I like those records too, but if you're more interested in the hardcore side of things, this is the one to get. There you go. The Zolg Crisis, my guest, Dogma Records, 1984. I think this is definitely going to be the last one of this little series. But yeah, I think I am going to do like a sort of post-punk, gothic, and like maybe first wave Japanese punk kind of catch-all video at some point, maybe early next year. And I'm going to do one on like my favorite female Japanese singers too, which are not necessarily punk. That should be an interesting video. The next video we're going to probably be doing is best punk albums of 2025. That's probably going to be in a week after this one goes up on the old YouTubes. Once again, thanks for subscribing. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking. Thanks for commenting. I've been, it's been real fun doing these videos again the last month or so. So thanks everyone. Take it easy. Cheers. See you next time.